Today, I'll show you how to create a boss in Yahaha. This boss has two unique skills. As you can see, when I join the arena, he has a high range attack, a fireball attack that damages the player upon exploding and hitting him, and a close range flamethrower attack that deals high damage to the players that are nearby. To build this enemy, we will need to use Nodegraphs, and first I'll show you all of the objects that I placed in the scene. So of course we have our robot enemy here, and attached to him we have an empty object with a trigger box. This trigger box is the range that the VFX of the flamethrower will play. So this is the trigger for the VFX. Then we have the flamethrower here. It's always on the scene, we don't have to spawn it. We have the trigger box that damages the player, and we will only mess around with the VFX itself when the player gets in the flame start trigger. And lastly, on this object we have the spawn bullet location. This is where the fireballs spawn. After that, we can come here to the side, and you'll see there's the explosion and the bullet the bullet object right here, which is the fireball. Both of them have the orb Nodegraph that I'll show later that damages the player on the trigger enter. And the other thing that you have to set up is this hidden object on the scene. It's below here. I used any object works. This is the trigger for the boss skills to happen. So as you can see here, there's the boss skills node graph, and we'll edit it to see what's going on with it. So here it is. The first thing that we'll set up is the spawn for the fireballs. So as you can see here, we have the on range variable that will be used to trigger the spawn and the movement of the fireball. So as the player enters the trigger is this big one right here of the hidden object. Uh, the on range variable gets triggered to 1. You can use a boolean here if you want, it's the same. Then while this variable is 1, you have a delay of 3 seconds, so every bullet will be the fire rate basically will be 1 bullet every 3 seconds. Then it spawns the fireball on the position that I showed here, the spawn bullet position, and then it starts a movement towards the player. So I get the player position here and the global position here, and it moves towards the player. After that, you can see that I have the on trigger exit right here to get the on range variable back to 0. Now we can get, if you do all of this right here, then you should have, I forgot about the destroy as well. So after 2 seconds you destroy the bullet and you spawn the explosion and destroy the explosion as well later. Otherwise you would have some hidden objects on the scene causing damage that you wouldn't want. So you have to destroy those objects so their trigger boxes are gone. Then we have the flamethrower. So we have the flame start, which is the trigger box that triggers the VFX. This is pretty simple. On trigger enter is per character. If yes, then the flamethrower VFX is played. If not, the VFX is stopped. This is the stopped VFX and play VFX node graphs. So you just type here VFX and you'll see. So okay, this is just to show the player that he is in danger. Now this is where you actually damage the player. So this is the flamethrower trigger box that I showed right here, this big trigger box right here. And on enter we will get the burn variable to 1. I set this variable up here, and while this variable is at 1, You have a delay, so every 1 second there will be 5 damage to the player applied. When the player leaves this trigger area, the variable is set back to 0 so he doesn't get damaged anymore. This is how this all works, and the flamethrower, you just need this. And for the bullets, the fireballs to work, you need also the orb node graph right here that I mentioned earlier. Very simple. Trigger enter, is player character, apply damage. This is both on the fireball and on the explosion, because you also want the explosion to damage the player. Uh, if you have all of that set up, then it should be working. The apply damage node graph is, as you can see here, deprecated, but the Yahaha team said that there's a solution coming soon that will replace this node graph. So if you have a project that you used this before, you can copy and send over to a new project until you have a new one. Right, so that's all we have for today. Any questions I can answer on the comments.